Hello. This is going to be something a bit different. So basically, instead of doing normal devlog, I'm going to be kind of explaining or showing code in a sense, but like it's like a tutorial, but it's more, instead of just showing you, because there's a lot of tutorials, it's just like, this is how you do this is how you do that, you copy it and then you're done. It's more like how you can, in a sense, create, or how to get thinking, like if you were like logically, I guess, thinking logically, I guess, like a computer would, thinking how the code would work, all stuff like that. So basically, disclaimer, no professional training, haven't worked professionally on games before, I've published a few Android games a while back that were made in Game Maker. They're no longer the Android store, sadly. Basically, you probably could disagree with some stuff I'm going to say, that's fair enough. This isn't a tutorial for the new dots, we are using OOP, but I'll get onto more of that later. This isn't a tutorial, so it's more my opinion, it's more my preference, is how just me as a person does it, probably some of you as well. I can't promise you'll learn anything, but maybe you'll get a broader understanding of programming, you know, put you in the right track, right state of mind maybe. I don't know, I haven't really got much of a guide for this. I've just got a random Unity project with a Visual Studio open for just a script called Tut for tutorial. But we'll go over some stuff. I'll start with some basic stuff, but first I want to say just a little my personal history of programming in Unity. So I've been programming since secondary school. I was I want to say 10, no, 9 I'd say. I was around coding in year 9 or year 8, and then I actually started with Python in year 10, but I was terrible at it. I was really lazy with programming, and I've had like a complete switch. Now I get it, I've learned all that stuff. But year 10, 11 I had to program. Same with years 12 and 13, so when I was 16, 17 and 12 and 13. That sort of stuff. When I first touched Unity, I remember Unity 2017 or whatever it was, Unity 5 I think they called it back then. Yeah, Unity 5. Yeah, it was Unity 5, I think it was. I remember I followed a tutorial on creating a cube, and it was like, this is how you change the color of a cube on a key press. And then I was like, oh my god, how does this work? I didn't understand any of it. I got it to work through following the tutorial, but I understood nothing of it. That's sort of what this is going to show. It's not going to be the tutorial that you'll understand nothing of. I'm trying to get you to understand it, so you can learn to understand it in a sense. So going back to the cube thing, obviously now I know it's just a matter of get the key input. It's just a matter of an if statement, because obviously if input to get key down, simple as that. Key code dot, we'll say A, yeah, and then we just get this thing's renderer of some kind, blah blah blah, this sort of stuff. That's, yeah, but forget about that. We'll start off the very basics. We'll get into it now. Let's get rid of those. When you learn to code, the most important thing, in my opinion, is variables, your variable typing. So you can learn about your we'll go about this more, but you've got your private, this is your, I can't remember the word, but we'll go back to these later. So you get your private, so your variables are stuff like your ints, your bools, your strings, your floats, that sort of stuff. It's important to know what these are. These are the main 4, but you'll come across many more at some point, but this isn't a tutorial for that. So it's good to remember all of these, because they all have their own uses. Float is floating point numbers. Stuff like your decimals, your 0.1, that's a float. Ints is just literally your numbers, your integer numbers. They're just your numbers. So your 1s, your 2s. It doesn't allow decimals. Bools, true or false. Strings, text is text. It's just hello world. Hello world, or hello world. It's good to remember that. Super important. First step is to learn your variables, but typically all programming languages have floats, ints, bools and strings. They don't change, even chars characters. Simple, basically strings. Strings are arrays of chars, but that's just complex, we'll forget about that. Going back to what I said, Unity this is a tutorial for Unity. It's not a tutorial. I'm not calling it a tutorial. Ignore what I just said. This is so out of I don't know what the word is. I don't have a plan, basically. I'm going with the flow. So OOP, or object, if I can spell, object oriented programming, blah blah blah. That's what OOP is. Object oriented programming. Basically, it says this script is an object. Tut is an object. So if I wanted to, I could access any script and store it in a public. So like tut. There we go. All I have to do is the name of the class, and I can call it whatever I want. My script, we'll say my script. Simple as that. But you've also got your, go back to public, private, and protected. So public is basically can be accessed through anything. So if I wanted to, if I had public tut my string or my script, and then if I just create like a public variable here, public string, no, my string. There we go. This is sick naming. And then if I wanted to access the string from tut, I could just do my script dot my string. Complex as hell. Sounds complex. This is throwing an error because obviously you can't just do that on its own. I could set it to equal to something and then I'll shut it up like that. But basically, this isn't a tutorial. So back to what this is showing. First lesson about programming, but it's not a tutorial, but they're lessons. That's what I'm calling them. Dot is your friend, especially in C#. This is so if you want to access things, you put dot. Typically, dots are everywhere. Oops. Dots are everywhere. So you just dot. You've got all this stuff in Visual Studio. You've got all this stuff. Unity documentation. It's all there. Always use Unity documentation. Unity itself uses components. Scripts are components. Classes are components. Everything you see here. Now, if you click on an object, this is a camera. This camera here is a component. This audio listener is a component. Add component. All this stuff here, components. Scripts, components, everything. What else? So, typically, get component is what you want, but that's not what I'm here to say. I'm here to tell you my thought process, and you're probably getting a good understanding of my lunatic thought process just from watching this video about how I can't, something just fell off my desk and I don't know what it was, about how I can't focus and how I don't know what I'm talking about. But this is the important part. If I wanted to make a game mechanic, something like throwing a sword, that's something in my devlog, I would think about it, I'd reverse engineer the process. So I would typically think of the end goal. So the end goal is throwing the sword. So I break that down from there. So my end goal, I've got my end goal, but how would I reverse engineer it to understand how it works? So I know I'll need some sort of object. I know I need an object. So I can do just get rid of this. Let's get rid of all this actually. So I know I need some sort of object. So I could do a public game object. I will say sword. I know I need some sort of object because obviously that's the sword I have to throw. I'm going to be throwing. I know I want to spawn the sword, so I know I want to be using certain functions that allow me to spawn things. If I didn't know what they were, I could have a Google. I do know it is in the instantiate function, and I can just put my variable in that. Visual Studio is pretty handy. You've got all this stuff. Use the arrow keys to see all the different parameters that you can take. All this stuff. But so just keeping on the reverse engineering process. I know I'll probably want to spawn it at some point, so there's many ways you can do it. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. There's a wrong way if it gives an error, but there's no right way. So I can either do a public vector 3 and just whatever I'm doing, vector, and just set the coordinates manually. Public game object, I can spawn out a certain game object, transform the game object, transform, so on. So there's many different ways to do one thing. So now I've keep reverse engineering it. I've got what I want to spawn, where I'm going to spawn it at, then I'm going to add some force to it. Many ways to do that. As always, I can do the two approaches: physics-based or just moving it through the scene. Physics-based involves rigid bodies and stuff like that. Basically, reverse engineer your mechanic, reverse engineer your problem. Start with the solution and break it down into its components. So I know, obviously, as I was saying with the sword throw, why is this throwing an error? Oh, okay, yeah. Break it down. Tip 1. Here we go. Let's put 1. Break. If I can spell. Break down what you want to make. What you want to make. Easy, simple. Just break it down into its components. Break it down into smaller things. Think of what variables you'll need if you want to have health. Health is obviously going to be either an int value. Maybe you want health to be a float value. If you want it to be a decimal, that'll be a float. If you've got an enemy, you know you're probably going to want the enemy to have some sort of health. Just break it down into its individual variables. Break it down to what functions you may need. You can put them all, all the logic in a void update, which is called every frame in Unity. But you probably want to put them in some sort of functions. You can name functions whatever you want. Just do private void, and I will say my function. There we go, it's my function. So I can call this function simple, my function. So every frame, my function will be called, and I can just do debug.log function. So every frame, that debug will be called. Obviously, there's tons of stuff that you can do with functions. Programming is endless. Moving on to number 2. Important note is number 2 before I get distracted and forget what I'm talking about. If statements. If statements are great. You can have 100 of them. You probably don't want 100 of them. Not in one class, at least. Throughout, not in one like big statement. Maybe throughout the whole thing, you've probably got like 100. That's just me personally. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. If statements. If statements work wonders. They take something, a comparison variable, whatever these are called, I can't remember, and a second something. And then if this something is true, so in this case, if A is less than or equal to B, it's going to run everything inside these brackets. So now, and let's think of that in a real scenario. So in the case of the devlog, we have the warping. So the player could throw a sword, he can warp towards it. We have a ball, is warping, so we know when the player is warping. That tells us to play our particle effect. So basically our ball, so in our the if statement for this is pretty much like so. If is warping equals to true, if I can spell warping right. Is warping 2 T's, 1 FX, 1, 2 T's, 2 P's. If warping is equal to true, do this. And then we just do run particle. That's particle. That's it. That's if statements. That's an example. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. You've got your. Let me show you the types you got. So you got. Let me just do A. This is equals. So if A and B are the same. This is if A is less than or equal to B. If A is greater than or equal to B. If A and B aren't the same. If A is greater than B or if A is less than B. I think that's all of them. But basically, rule 2 is just use if statements. Statements, is that right? Who cares? I can't spell. That's rule 2. I've talked about the reverse engineering, breaking it down, use if statements. Rule 3 is to just play games, right? Play a game and think about how they did it. So just think of your favorite game right now. Think of a mechanic in it. Let's say, what have we been playing lots of? Let's do something quite complex. No, let's not do something quite complex. I was going to say Let's do Pokemon's turn-based system. Okay, so let's think of how Pokemon's turn-based system works. So we know about all we know about the Pokemon turn-based system. We've seen the final product. We just need to now break it down. So it has its speed value. All the Pokemon have a unique speed value, and this this basically gives us the order that we're going to attack in. That's very important. That's our first step, could be to, well, not necessarily the first step, but it's something we should keep in mind when developing the system, is that at some point we're going to have a speed order to determine who goes first, who's second, in doubles, who's third, who's fourth, and so on. And then we're going to basically want some way to keep track of whose turn it is. So we're probably going to need some sort of we won't go in. I mean, I don't know how they do it. Probably some sort of enum, but we'll forget about enums for now. You can research them on your own if you're really interested. They're pretty cool. We'll use a bool. Just say if it is player turn, so we know if it's the player's turn. If it's the player's turn, do this. Basically, oh, that's wrong. If is player turn, do this. That's what we're doing. Like, show the UI. Like in Pokemon, you don't see your options until it's your turn. So that's like we got the show UI, the allow the player to select options. It's all about breaking it down. Basically, is what I'm trying to get at. Another thing, I did have this. As I said, I had these notes, but they're terrible. Breaking it down, linking scripts. So as I mentioned, I can create a variable of this script I'm in now, tut, just like this. I'll call it tut for the sake of convenience. But if I went into Unity and made another script, we'll say hello. This is another point about naming we'll get to eventually. I can actually go into here, create a public hello, and we'll call it my hello. I'll call you my tut. My tut, I'm tutting. My hello, my tut. Thinking about linking scripts. Obviously, public. If something's public, it means it can be accessed through another script. So in this example with my hello, if I had a public int, we'll call it num, and a public and a private bool, we'll call it value. You'll see if I try to access through my hello using the reference we've got here, my hello, that we've created up top. If we try to access, say, int, what did I call it? Num even, I can do it because it's public, but if I wanted to activate value, get value, this bool value we've got here, I can't do it, it's private. And yeah, if we wanted to access it through a script, we have to make it public. But if only this script is going to use it, we want private. I don't know why I keep going back to this, the whole topic of, what is this called? Is this encapsulation? I don't remember. Who cares? What else to talk about? Let me read my notes. Start, update, and awake. Okay, this is something interesting. If you use Unity, you've got update, awake, and start. Not in this order. It doesn't matter the order. It's one is of C++ is your function. No, C++ is not. C++ does care about order. C# doesn't care about order. So, void start. It triggers on start. This is the simple way to understand. Void awake triggers on start, but before the start function. Genius. And this triggers every frame. So yeah, you got to think about how you can use these to your advantage. Think of them as like your weapons, your tools. How are you going to use these to create your final product? It's just the way I've always been taught is it's a recipe. Your algorithms are a recipe. And these are your tools, your update, your functions are your tools, your variables are your tools. You need to combine all these tools together in some way. If we want to get a variable to start with, if we want to assign get a component, we'd probably want it to be in here, like get component in here, or component equals get component. This isn't one of those tutorials, just trying to give you the rundown of how it should work. As I keep saying, because I'm dumb. I don't know, I really should have thought this through more before doing it one random night. Basically, I'm going to give you, okay, naming, here we go, naming. And neatness of code definitely helps, having neat code. If your code is messy, it's awful. Comment code. Where's my things? Here we go. What was 4? 3? I don't know, we're moving to 4. Comment code. Super important. I never used to do it. I still forget sometimes, but I'll go back to it and comment it before I forget. Comment. Excuse me, I burped. Professional. If you've seen any other videos I do, you know I'm not professional at all. Yeah, variable names as well. My tut and my hello are terrible. A lot of people have a lot of their own naming normalities, I guess. So it's maybe the wrong word, but like some people I know, some people I've seen will always start with an underscore for their variables. Some people will say, in this case it's a float, they'll put a small f followed by the name, so like f number, so float number. If it's an int, it'd be I. If it was a bool, it'd be B, so on and so on. It's up to you what you want to do it. Typically follow camel casing. Camel casing being, so if in this case we have an int, if your variable name is, or function name, it doesn't even, what am I saying? If your variable name is made up of multiple words, in this case, say our variable name is hello world. Camel casing is every word after the first one should be capitalized. So in hello world's case, use small h to start with hello, and every word after it, so hello world, capital W. If there was another one, it'll be T. This is a test. Capitalize the start of every word. That's camel casing. You use it for variables. Functions, it's different. Always capitalize functions. So if our function here, we don't want this. This is awful. My function of a lowercase m. We want capital M. My function. You basically have it so the word starts. It's easier to read, so you know when the word starts, the word ends. It's kind of like Japanese. It's not like Japanese, but Japanese, like they've got the particles to dictate where the gaps in the words are, sort of thing. Don't know what I'm saying. All right, this is the next lesson's most important. Number 5. Am I right? Yes. Have fun. Have fun. This is the story time now. So, coding is meant to be fun. You're meant to just make whatever you want. If you want to create something that you enjoy. So, in my case, my devlog it's there so because I enjoy it. I'm making a game I wanted to make. I've had this idea for years that I've never been able to do, but now I've given myself the chance, creating a devlog, to like motivate myself to do it. You'll end up loving programming if you're making what you want to make. I played piano for 5 years during secondary school, and I did it for GCSE and A level, and there was this piece I had to learn for A level, and I hated the piece. It was some Baroque piece, but that's not important, and I didn't enjoy playing the piece. So I went to my teacher. I said, can I change this piece? I changed the piece to Chopin. I'm a big fan of romantic music, the romantic era that is, and also forgetting about that. So I changed the piece, and I enjoyed it so much better. Learned the piece so much easier because I actually wanted to play it. This is a piece I wanted to learn. It was enjoyable to me. I wanted to do it. I wanted to get better. So I sort of did. I had the motivation to work on it because I thought it was fun. Motivation is a completely different story. Maybe I'll save that for another video or something. A lot of people think programming is like super maths, like your tangents, your angles, your that's the only thing I can think of, like working out the angle, your normalizing your magnitudes, your velocities, your all that. A lot of people think it's all maths, but really it's not. It's all done for you in a sense. You've got your functions set out for you. Like Unity has built-in functions to all its well, most of its classes. You're not reinventing the wheel. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. You can always Google as well. Just if someone's probably already made it. If you want a function that allows you to, like as it's in the devlogs, like the shader that I use for the glow effect, someone already made it. Why would I make it from scratch myself when I can just Google it? There's nothing wrong with Googling it. People that say there's something wrong with Googling, it's just dumb. There's literally nothing wrong with Googling. Speaking of Google, it's super helpful, Google. Just follow it. It is difficult to learn because obviously you're looking at code, like just the full finished code, and you have no idea what it means. But the idea of this is to try and get you to understand the logic of the code and know what you need and don't need. For an example, if you want to increment a number by 1, something simple, you just want to make this number go up by 1, and there's this long script is saying, like this script above it has the line get component rigid body. You probably don't want that because you know rigid bodies are related to physics. You don't want physics because you're just incrementing a number. You need to try and figure out what you need and don't need in programming. You'll probably find that when you first make your own program, you'll probably find there's a lot you don't need once you're done with it. You'll probably find that good done is much easier, blah blah blah. That's the step you need. Programming is about learning and improving each time. So it's like going back to music. It's like sight reading. Musicians sight read. It helps them practice. They get a piece they have never seen before, put it in front of them and play. That's it. They just play. So imagine if you did that with programming. You come up with a game mechanic. You're like, right. What are we doing? Let's have a flashlight. Let's make a flashlight. No looking at Google. No Google. Right. I made a flashlight. Let's have it trigger on an input. Just do that. No Google. You'll learn so much easier that way, and you'll become quicker and quicker at programming. It's about understanding and breaking down the code into its components, because coding is English. At the end of the day, you're not writing Chinese. Even like Japanese, they program in English because it's just such a nice language to programming. Think of it in your primary native language. Just think of it as plain, simple English. Literally, it does what it says on the tin. Look at this. What am I doing? The get component command, it literally is English. Get component. This probably tells me it's going to get a component, and I need to tell it what component to get. Obviously, the syntax is a bit weird, but that's a completely different issue. Forget the syntax. Syntax will be picked up over time, and you'll just get used to it. So much so that you'll be writing your comments with the end, like finishing them off with semicolons, because you're so used to writing with semicolons. I think that's it. I was on a high. I was like rolling with it, and I was on a high. Then I'm just like, oh, I've got nothing else to do. I think that's everything. Wow. I went through my notes pretty quick. Been like nearly half an hour. And this was a mess. Well, basically, let's sum it up. Reverse engineer. Think of your problem from the completed state. Work backwards. Break it down into its components. Think of what variables you'll need, what functions you'll need, what you want it to do. Think of it like that. Don't think this is impossible because I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Break it down. Oh, I've got corona. Oh, my throat is so dry. Think about how you can link scripts to another. I helped a friend the other day with some uni work. We created a health script that was going to be on every enemy and even the player. So it's simple. We only had one script. We didn't have to make more. And when it came to checking if the player was alive or dead, all you had to do was get a reference to the player's script, and because obviously they all use the same script, you can just get the reference to the players only. So think about how you can link scripts. You don't have to create new scripts. Think about how they link. The one amazing thing about OOP is all the scripts there, they have unique references. They're unique to each other in a sense that this script, I can have it on 2 separate objects, and object 1 is different to object 2. That's what OOP is. Just because there's a health script on 10 enemies doesn't mean they all have the same health. They have their own health, they all have their own access, they have their own unique version of this script. It's just the same script. One thing I didn't mention, and it was bad practice for me to show you this, get component. Don't use this in update unless you really have to. Typically, you'll learn this when you go along about optimizing. You don't want... Think about... I don't know if I should say this. It's quite complex, but don't think about what... Like, get component. You don't want to run that every frame. Try and think about what you want to happen every frame. Something like get component. If you're getting a component every frame, that's going to be a lot of work. That's just all I say on that matter. As I said, awake is called before start. We got that here. Yep. I don't know why it says co there. Yeah, as I said, coding is fun. Just do it. Honestly, do it. The best way that I would do it is to just go at it. Don't use Google to start with. Figure it out from yourself. Obviously, if you have no experience, maybe follow a few tutorials. But if you have, maybe like read a book or two, or you've done something before and you just want to improve, just write whatever you want. Just create a simple script and just go for it. That's literally the best advice I can give. You'll learn more if you do it without the help of others. Coding is kind of like that. It's not like it. Think of it. If you were trying to learn a language, you want to speak to someone who's native in that language. In our case, Unity is native in C#, and we want to know C#. But luckily for us, we can talk to Unity. Like if I was to learn French, I'd go to someone who speaks fluent French to learn. I've got that right here. Unity speaks fluent C#, and I want to learn C#. Perfect. That's all I can say. Nothing else to it. That's all she wrote. It's plain English. Best advice I can give you is to do it. Also, look at your errors. Look at this. The errors sometimes don't make sense, but you can Google errors. I'll let you off on that. Expected a semicolon. Yeah, that's because I didn't save the script. In Visual Studio, you can see if you haven't saved by the asterisks. I'll have no errors now. But yes, that is all. Thank you all so much for watching this mess of a video. I hope someone somewhere got something understanding from it. I just did it one random evening because I was bored, nothing better to do, and was like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do this. And hopes you improve. Don't follow tutorials unless you really have to. Google is good. Tutorials are good. I'm not bashing on tutorials. They're good, but they show you the result and this code you need, but they don't tell you how to get to the process of understanding the code you need. So if you try it as much by yourself as possible, then go to the tutorial, you'll probably learn a lot more. But that's just me. So, as I said, thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want, I don't care. This is a mess of a video. Thank you for sticking to the end. If you did, goodbye.